Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel True Crime and Trials, and today I will be covering day 2 of the Anthony Pardon trial. My last video took literally from 7 AM to 2 AM to upload, so I may have to start doing my videos in 2 parts just to try and avoid that. It might have been a one-off, but I'm not sure. So the second witness that's up on day 2 is a really long one with lots and lots of photographs, so I'll keep an eye on the time and see later on. So the first witness is John Anderson, who is Rachel's brother. At the time of her murder he was 18. And he says Rachel liked to have a good time, go out with friends, hang out with him and the family, and she didn't really have any hobbies that he knew of. And John went to Rachel's house on the 27th of January 2018 to go to Rachel's birthday party at Jonathan Kennedy's on the 28th of January. They ask him about where Rachel always parked her car, and he confirmed that she always parked it outside her apartment. So obviously it was very out of character for her car to be parked around the corner. John's DNA was actually found on a bathrobe in Rachel's apartment, and he explained that he'd used it as a towel. He says at the party they just hung out, smoked weed and drank, and then they later got an Uber to a club. They were there for 1 to 2 hours, and then they went back to Jonathan's apartment. He and Rachel both stayed there the night. Then John and Rachel went back to her apartment, and John got his things and left. He didn't speak to Rachel after he left, but Rachel texted him about the key that John had taken with him by accident, and she told him it's fine. Jonathan Kennedy has a spare key. He first learned that something was wrong on the 29th of January. Cross-examination, they speak about a telephone interview that John gave to a detective, and John had given the detective Jonathan Kennedy's name as a suspect because he believed Jonathan was the only one that knew her in Columbus. Rachel was John's everything. John had had a conversation with Rachel, and she had said she was afraid of Jonathan Kennedy. She was afraid because of a falling out they'd had, and this made John a bit surprised and a bit perplexed as to why he was organising a birthday party for Rachel. He also says that Jonathan Kennedy thought Rachel was an attractive woman, and he said that Jonathan had sexual vibes towards Rachel. And Rachel had told John that Jonathan had called her a virus. I think this was part of the big falling out they had and what he'd called her. But there's no further explanation as to why Jonathan called Rachel a virus. But it all sounds very odd. Rachel, Jonathan and Tina, which was Jonathan's wife at the time, had all taken acid, and John believed that's when these sexual vibes happened, which made Rachel uncomfortable after that, and she thought he was going to break up with Tina and pursue her. Nobody took any pictures at the party, but Tina recorded a small video which she sent to John. So obviously the defence is going after the Jonathan Kennedy angle. I mean, they're trying, but obviously we all know that there's this huge DNA evidence against Anthony. So I don't know. It doesn't put Jonathan Kennedy in a good light, to be honest, but so we're on to the second witness, and this testimony is very long, and it's Joshua Durst, who works at the Ohio BCI, which is Bureau of Criminal Investigations, and he has been with them for 10 years. He is a crime scene special agent, and he was called out to Rachel's apartment and was informed it was a death scene before he went in there. He arrived in the early evening, and they are now going over all the numerous crime scene photos he'd taken. So the first one is the door to see if there was any forced entry, which there wasn't, and then the second photo is the other side of the door. The third one is a closer photo of the door, and the next is the entrance through the door. The fifth one is Rachel's bag that looked like it had been tipped out, as you can see from the photo. The next one, the living room. Then the entrance to the kitchen near the stairs, the kitchen, the back door, again to see if there was any forced entry, which there wasn't. The laundry room, the floor of the laundry room, contents of the fridge, bottom of the staircase, the upstairs landing, the bathroom, Rachel's bedroom, and now they are showing pictures of Rachel's body, etc., which obviously aren't being shown to us. He said there was a reddish brown stain on the carpet. One of the cords was wrapped around the doorknob multiple times and then around Rachel's neck. And then there's a picture of a trash can and 3 receipts he took for evidence in case they may have been relevant to the case. A cell phone that was found on the coffee table. And he obviously looked at the notifications on the phone, and the first missed phone call on that cell phone was from Haley Kennedy, which was at 10 to 9 that night on the 28th of January. He found no debit or credit cards in the bag. The next picture is Rachel's driver's license, and then outside of Rachel's apartment at the back, again the back door from the outside for any evidence of forced entry, which there were none. Then they show a picture of the red-brown stain on Rachel's bedroom. He tested the stain and it was positive for blood. He says Rachel was partially wrapped in a white blanket, and the cord was used to hog tie her. And I noticed even he was finding it hard to go over these photos of Rachel, even though it was 2 years ago, to be sat there going over what he saw can't be easy, really. And to hear what state she was in, it must have just been horrific. On the bed sheet there was another red-brown stain, which he says is a transfer stain. The blood stain on the floor had soaked through the carpet, which is classed as a saturation stain because he cut round it and obviously peeled the carpet back and saw the blood underneath. There was hair in the knot of the iron cord and also patches of blood. There was a belt found that had hair in it also. The hairdryer and cord were used to tie her ankles. She was tied at the hands, and the cord from the blinds in her bedroom and from the curling iron was used to connect everything to hog tie her. There was a lot of knots, and he said it was very intricate, so Lord only knows how long he spent tying her up in that way. And part of me is wondering what the significance of that is. I mean, it's one thing to rape and murder a woman, but to go to the effort he did to tie her up and strangle her and hog tie her and everything, it's just sounds so bizarre. And you know, what was the motive behind doing that? There was a black fabric stuffed into her mouth also. He pulled Rachel's hair back and found a stab wound at the back of her neck. And And he said it was a white t-shirt that was over her head and knotted around her neck, and it was saturated with blood. She had nothing on below the waist. Underneath her body was a pair of black panties. In the dresser next to the closet were 2 knives, one of which was a steak knife that looked very similar to the knives that were in the knife block in the kitchen. And the other knife was a utility knife. And he says in the knife block in the kitchen there were 4 empty spaces. The next picture is the iron, and then the iron cord with the hair in the knot or on the cord. Next is a cord that was around Rachel's neck. Then the rest of the cord that was wrapped around the doorknob, and the black material that was tied around the knob also. Then the blanket that was wrapped around Rachel's body. He also dusted inside and outside of Rachel's car for fingerprints. On February the 13th, 2018, Rachel's mum was cleaning out Rachel's apartment and took a load of boxes that obviously Rachel hadn't got round to emptying, and she took them back to her house, and she found a knife in one of those boxes with blood on it and hair on it. She called law enforcement, and Joshua went to Rachel's parents' house to get the knife. The contents of the box was also examined. The knife that Rachel's mother found were consistent with the knives in Rachel's knife block. Joshua was then asked to go to a suspect's house on February of 2018, or in February of 2018. He was told to look for specific items. I mean, obviously when they go to a suspect's house to do a search and collect evidence, they're not going to spend hours looking through every single thing in that house. They will actually be given a list that detectives are aware of and what might be relevant to the case. So obviously Joshua was looking for certain and specific items of evidence, including clothing that the suspect was wearing at the time because of the surveillance footage that they'd seen, and any clothing tags, as Rachel's credit card had been used, along with any receipts from any purchases, as well as cell phones. So now they go over crime scene photos from the suspect's house. So the first one is outside the front of the house, then the dining area and kitchen, a dining area and kitchen again, one of the bedrooms, a pill bottle found on top of the bed with the name Loretta Pardon on it, then another bedroom and another bedroom. They then show living room photos again, a picture of a cell phone, a driver's license belonging to Deborah Pardon found inside a wallet, an ID card belonging to Christine Marie Eubanks, and a brown coloured hat, which was one of the items he was asked to look for. There was also receipts for a casino, which was another piece of evidence he was asked to look for. Players' cards with names, one of which is Deborah Pardon, another cell phone that was collected for evidence, a reward card with Loretta Pardon's name on it, clothes bags. There was padlocks on at least 2 of the bedroom doors, possibly all 3. Joshua did know it was the Pardon residence of Loretta and Anthony. So the next day, a second vehicle, the vehicle Anthony was arrested in, was examined. A picture of the car, a picture of 2 casino reward cards, packaging for a stun gun, but no stun gun, just the box, a cell phone collected for evidence, an air pistol that was found in the car, a baseball cap, gloves, receipt, clothing tag, and a knife that was found a black jacket law enforcement were also interested in. So that was the end of the state's examination, and now we're on to cross-examination. And he begins by pointing out the fact that Joshua hadn't found the knife that Rachel's mum had found. Obviously he'd missed it. I don't think he was proud of the fact that he'd missed it. The knife that was found in Anthony Pardon's car, he didn't swab the knife. He thought it might be best for the lab to do it. I'm presuming that they have certain procedures to follow. I don't know. He didn't find any blood or hair in the Pardon residence, and they are showing the picture of the cord and black material wrapped around Rachel's closet doorknob and the metal plate that was missing. That wasn't found. It's just basically picking at anything and everything, like, you know, what he swabbed, what he didn't swab, and why, and why he didn't look in the boxes in the cupboards, and, you know, the typical things that any defence lawyer would do, really. I don't think it makes much difference. I mean, it's not a good thing that he didn't find that knife, and obviously Rachel had been stabbed, so you'd have thought he would have looked for that, but either way, the knife was found. It's a shame Rachel's mother had to find it, but and the state get up again for a redirect, and it was just said that at Rachel's apartment no keys were found that were on a lanyard. So that was the end of day 2. I mean, again, very interesting. So we'll see what goes on day 3. So until then, bye for now.